Grenadians voting to elect a new government, and in sport, Trinidadian athletics coach Arthur Stevens barred and deported from the Cayman Islands. I'm Ricardo Roberts, and this is Caribbean in 10 for Tuesday, March 13th. I'll be back with the details after the break.
Yeah, baby. Now I'm getting the rhythm. Now I can understand what it is. If just, you know, you can just come on, just gaff it. Okay, well, but bye-bye. Got it. We'll get that later. We'll get that gaff later. Ooh. Look at us. Go, Charlie. Go, Charlie.
Man, we have Dawn and Chaz, you know, chosen soldiers, and man, you guys, man, I am so proud of you guys. And you know, I see you all being featured in Africa. Yes, you know, on the top music video countdown called Big Tunes.
Praise the Lord, 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 praise the Lord. When he praise the Lord, we praise the Lord.
Grenadians have gone out in large numbers to vote in the country's 9th general elections since it gained independence from Great Britain in 1974. The 264 polling stations around the island opened at 6 this morning. Among the early voters were incumbent Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell, who says he is confident of victory. Mitchell, who cast his ballot at the Happy Hill School in the St. George Northwest constituency, which he has represented for more than 3 decades, said, unlike previous elections, this is the calmest he has been. And he said he was encouraged by the turnout so far in some of the constituencies he had visited. While there are 7 political parties in the race, the fight is mainly between the new National Party, the NNP, and the main opposition, National Democratic Congress, the NDC, headed by former Finance Minister Nazim Burke. The polls are expected to close at 5 p.m. Keeping on the election front in Grenada, the Parliamentary Electoral Office has dismissed reports that inferior ballot papers are being used. Many voters today called into the Grenada Broadcasting Network to complain that there were at least 2 or 3 different types of paper being used to mark the ballots at some of the 264 polling stations across the country, but the Civic and Education Officer at the Parliamentary Electoral Office, Ferdinand Phillips, says one quality of ballot paper was made available to the general public and that is being used today. He says while he understands the concerns of the voters, the paper provided is of a good quality material, and once it is properly folded, no one can see who someone voted for. Now, we want to go back to an earlier story. Meanwhile, the NDC leader cast his ballot earlier today in his Northwest constituency, and this is the first time he is running as leader of the party. And we have Mr. Burke live on the line. Mr. Burke, good afternoon.
And good afternoon to your listeners.
All right, Mr. Burke, you voted today for the first time as political leader of the NDC. Now, how confident are you of victory for you and your party?
Well, we are not in the business of counting our chickens before they're hatched, but we are quite optimistic about the elections. I can tell you with confidence that we have done all that we think we need to do in order to prevail. What we believe will now decide the elections is, first of all, whether the people turn out to vote today, and especially whether we bring out the people that we know to be our supporters, whether we can get out the vote today. So the job is still one in progress. We are continuing to work, but we feel certain that if we were to get our people out, the results will be in our favor.
I want to leave it right there, Mr. Burke. Thank you very much for your time. And to other stories now, President of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, says the Petro generated sales of over $5 billion is in its pre-sale period. Maduro made the announcement during a meeting with members of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela. Maduro also said the Petro has strengthened the country's international reserves. He said the revenue generated from the sale of the Petro, which is based on Venezuela oil reserves, will be used to service the needs of the country as well as form part of the wider economic solution. Venezuela's superintendent of cryptocurrency and related activities, Carlos Vargas, has reported that over 83,000 people from 127 countries have made certificate purchase offers for the Petro. Now, the Petro went on pre-sale late February and is being used to circumvent economic sanctions imposed on Venezuela by the United States government. And stay with us, your Midday Sport is next. Welcome back. It's now time for sport. Trinidadian-born athletics coach Atto Stevens has been deported from the Cayman Islands and barred from re-entering the British Overseas Territory. This comes almost a year after he was found guilty of misusing an ICT network. He had exchanged illicit photos with a minor at the time. Now, according to Cayman 27, which quoted from a statement from the Premier's office on Monday, Stevens is now a prohibited immigrant under the country's immigration laws. CMC Sport also understands that Stevens left the Cayman Islands long before his scheduled departure date, which is March 16th. He had served several months on remand pending the conclusion of his trial. The coach was acquitted of indecent assault and gross indecency charges involving the 14-year-old girl from the athletics club he managed at the time. And West Indies A failed in their bid for a second successive whitewash when they went down to England Lions by 7 wickets in the third and final one-dayer Sunday night. Opting to bat first, Windies A slumped to 28 for 3 in the 7th over before Chase engineered to 2 stands to prop up the innings. Now, first he put on 38 for the 4th wicket with Kavim Hudge, who made 13, and when 2 wickets fell for 10 runs, he added a further 66 for the 6th wicket, with Hamilton to get Windies needing the Windies out. Now, needing 167 for victory, the visitors reached their target in the 32nd over to complete their first success of the tour after losing the 2 previous matches in the series and all 3 four-day tests. Now, Sam Hain, in only his 3rd match for the Lions, led the runs chase with an unbeaten 54, while Alex Davies got 46 and opener Nick Gubbins 34. That's Caribbean in 10. Join us again at 6:30 for Caribbean Newsline. Good afternoon.